When id Software releases a new game, the entire gaming community pays attention. That's because over the years, very few developers have been as influential to a single genre as id Software. From Wolfenstein to Doom to Quake, the first-person shooter as we know it today might not exist without the breakthrough designs of id Software. And so here we are, 15 years after the debut of Quake, with an all-new franchise from the progenitors of the FPS. And needless to say, there's a lot of hype surrounding the release of Rage, but does the final product live up to the lofty legacy of its makers? Well, in short, yes and no. Released just this week to the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PC, and Mac, Rage represents a new kind of shooter for id Software. It has all the high production values and gorgeous design you'd expect, as well as combat that's so satisfying it could only have come from the guys who invented it in the first place. But for all its triumphs, you can't help but also come away from Rage slightly underwhelmed. Unlike prior id games, this doesn't reinvent or redefine. It's familiar, routine, conventional even. A game that's content to tread safe ground rather than forge new. Now, of course, for id Software, such a high bar is an inherent cost of breaking so much ground in their prior efforts. You can't help but look at Rage in the light of the Dooms and Quakes of the world, but even so, Rage is still an undeniably good time. You've played games like this before, but very few have been refined to this degree. Simply put, Rage is one of the most visually stunning games ever released for a console. The game takes place in a world that, in the wake of a near apocalypse, seems to have reverted centuries back in time. It's a lawless wasteland where survivors live with dusty air, makeshift settlements, and mutated bandits.
Well, look at what Hagar said to us. How dare you think you can walk into our house?
Now, it doesn't sound like a very pretty place, but when Mother Nature occasionally gleams through and alleviates some of that post-apocalyptic dust, you see id Software has created a stunning world that's absolutely gorgeous to take in. But as you'll often find with Rage, there's always a catch. For example, the graphics simultaneously dazzle and disappoint. Rage is hindered by occasional technical issues, not the least of which is its texture pop-in. It's kind of hard to appreciate the beauty of a landscape when it takes 3 seconds to load the textures of a rock. And then there's the gameplay. Rage is a shooter in an old-school vein, meaning the combat comes in spurts and in mostly small areas. Since the world is so immersive, that's hardly a problem. In fact, if anything, it's a plus. Working your way through a narrow, shady enemy hideout and exploring dangerous settlements, it just feels right in Rage. The immersive nature of the game world also has a lot to do with the game's structure. As a kind of freelance ass kicker, you move from place to place and you can accept missions from the locals. So the world is open, but it's also focused, and you do feel like you're a part of it as you're taking care of business in a way that, as you soon find out, only you can. But of course, the problem, if your expectations are in line with prior id games, is that a playthrough of Rage reveals nothing new. Of course, to be fair, when that's the biggest criticism you can give, that tells you how good a game really is. This is a fantastic shooter made with expert flair, from the stunning vistas, even to the way the enemies react to your bullets. And more importantly, it's a really fun world to take part in. A Rage may not be Quake, but it doesn't really have to be anything more than just another tremendous shooter from id Software.
Ah, you're awake. Good. I like my prey to know what's coming. I promise this will hurt.